each time we've been canceled, I think I there's always like this thought in the back of your head, like I think we're gonna come back. It's so far that's worked out pretty well.
You nincompoop! Don't tell me you took steroids! Okay, I won't!
So Futurama first aired back in 1999 and returned in 2023 after an entire decade off the air. Um, as executive producer, how were you able to adapt the show's revival to the evolving cultural trends and changes to suit a modern audience?
That's a great question. I think, and I mean, I think that is our longest hiatus to date. We have a kind of an illustrious history of cancellation, so I think that was kind of our what we refer to as our hiatus, but probably our biggest time off. So, I mean, I think the tenets of the show that really work, and I think and hope are timeless are, one, it's a workplace comedy, which, sort of both includes, you know, a real family, albeit like a very distantly related one with the professor and Fry. But it's much more about the family you make, than the family you inherit. And so I think, Matt and David just set us up with these great characters and relationship and really like the conceit of looking through today through this lens 1,000 years in the future, and sort of making fun of what's changed and maybe like what hasn't really changed. And that's probably truer than ever right now. Right now. So I think, David and the writers did a great job sort of bringing us back when we relaunched. And it does, I mean, we've made sort of some, character progress in the sense that Fry and Leela, like, are actually in a relationship, and the will they, won't they thing has sort of been removed. And, Kif and Amy have kids, which I think is kind of an interesting evolution of their characters. And then, Zap, like the minute he learns anything, it's gone. So he's sort of like a character that seems incapable of I don't know, it's definitely permanent growth, but even temporary, like any growth is so short-lived, it's, not worth tracking. So, and that's part of the comedy of him, basically. So I think we sort of, in a lot of ways, kind of have this evergreen setup that we're really fortunate to have. And, in those 10 years, there's just been a lot of things like, I think we never want to rely purely on parody, but there's been a lot of, things in the zeitgeist that have come through that, or sort of new things to comment on and make fun of and explore. So we're sort of, other than having to live through some of them, like we're fortunate in that in that sense, basically.
What new themes or plot lines are you most excited for fans to see in season 13?
Like episode 4, which is the Numberland Gap, is probably our nerdiest science math episode to date, but it's sort of, this super nerdy math thing, which ends up being really fun and thought provoking. So that's sort of one of my favorites. I mean, obviously the Scared Screenless, like I think we all sort of struggle with attachment to our phones and other devices. And then I really Wicked Human is like, I think, fun in just the sense of that ultimate like debate of religion and science. And it's just kind of a funny exploration of that. And I think like the White Hole is one of my favorite, is kind of going up on one of my favorite ever classic Futurama episodes. And I just love like the sheer sci-fi nature of that, but then, sort of how it applies to all our characters.
Yeah, there's a lot for fans to be excited about in season
Yeah,
13.
I think this is a really good, strong season. And it'll be interesting, since we're switching to the binge model.
Mm.
It'll just be interesting to see, what that looks like as opposed to the weeklies.
King of the Hill also received a revival this year with season 14 after
Right.
being off the air since 2009. What do you think these revivals spell for the future of animated sitcoms?
It's an interesting question. I think, I mean, part of it, I think it's just the propensity to look at, for these big companies to look at their existing IP and, um, I think it's always like attractive to go with a tried and true, basically. So, I think, what you and I are not seeing or privy to is, like for Futurama, for instance, you know, like those companies like Netflix who originally, sort of had the streaming rights to a bunch of those Fox shows, and now Disney through Hulu, like they see the number, like they're looking at the numbers. And I think like I can't remember what article, but I think in like 2016 or 2017 or right before, Netflix lost those, the rights to those Fox shows. I think, Futurama accounted for 2% of all viewership on Netflix, which when
Mm.
you think about it is kind of huge,
Yes,
you
very.
know. So I think, you know, I think one people, there's a comfort factor there for people too, of like if you've, grown up with something or enjoy something, if you can make new versions of that, which, sort of hold up, I think that's attractive. And it should be because ultimately, we're creating characters and stories that are compelling enough for you to, want to come back and check in with us and see what we're up to. So the King of the Hill thing I'm less familiar with. The interesting thing to me is like, they made the bold choice to kind of age up the characters, which is,
Mhm.
I think, really interesting and cool and not common in animation. So, but I sort of applaud it just because it's like doing something different. It's doing something different.
And season 14 of Futurama is already confirmed for 2026.
Yes.
Did you ever expect to be making new episodes up to this point? And were there any unique challenges keeping a show going for so long?
I mean, personally, each time we've been canceled, I think there's always like this thought in the back of your head, like, I think we're gonna come back. It's so far, that's worked out pretty well. We have like, I think the best partners we've ever had in 20th and Hulu. But I think we also, because we take these gaps off between, um, I think both, David on the writing side and for myself in Rough Draft, our goal is when we come back to look as good or better than, the last time you watched the show. So I think we take that challenge and responsibility pretty seriously. And that's sort of like a big driver for us of trying to kind of up the ante, but also keep the show very much anchored in what makes it work. And sometimes I think we're very ambitious and we can be our own worst enemy, like in trying to do things that are really difficult to do. And we're still on like a TV schedule and budget, so like we have to kind of keep moving, and we tend to really like dig into things that excite us, and sometimes at our own peril, but it always gets done, basically.
No, that was very well said, as long as it gets done.
Yeah, it
Well,
all gets done, and as long as it, we're just, we're very excited by the work we do, and we're very lucky to work with such great people, and we really want to deliver on a level that's sort of meeting, the scripts we get and the voice performances we get. So that's sort of a great, a welcome and great challenge for us.
well, that's a very great closing remark. Well, thank you so much for all your time today. It was so
Oh,
lovely meeting you.
Team, and thank you so much, and a pleasure meeting you as well. I hope we meet again.